Well, America has a new House Speaker. Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson was sworn in yesterday after 3 weeks of the U.S. House of Representatives being left in limbo without an official leader. But Johnson may have his work cut out for him, unifying a fractured Republican Party that ousted the former Speaker and rejected 3 nominees for the top job. Our Scott MacFarlane is on Capitol Hill and joins me now with the latest. Good morning, Scott.
And Marie, good morning. This time yesterday, Mike Johnson was a little-known congressman from western Louisiana. This morning, he is second in line to the U.S. presidency, and it all happened so quickly, Johnson's wife couldn't get here in time for the big moment.
56th Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the Honorable Mike Johnson.
Congressman Mike Johnson is in just his 4th term, but Wednesday, the 51-year-old former radio talk host and attorney moved into the Speaker's office.
We went through a lot to get here, but we are ready to govern, and that will begin right away.
Moments after Johnson's election, the House approved a resolution denouncing the attack on Israel. But tougher votes are coming. Johnson has previously opposed more U.S. aid for Ukraine, an issue that fiercely divides Republicans. Johnson has opposed abortion rights and supports a nationwide abortion ban without exceptions. And last month, he voted against a deal cut with Democrats to keep the government open. Now Johnson faces a November 17th deadline to again avoid a shutdown. He only emerged after Congressman Tom Emmer, who voted to certify President Biden's win, dropped out amid pressure from Donald Trump. Yesterday, Trump claimed credit for Johnson's win.
Nobody was thinking of Mike. And then we put out the word, and now he's the Speaker of the House.
The House Johnson now leads will take part in certifying next year's presidential election. But the new Speaker backed Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 results. He promoted debunked mail fraud and voter machine conspiracy theories. And he also recruited a majority of House Republicans to sign a legal brief supporting a lawsuit seeking to overturn the vote outcome, which was rejected by the Supreme Court.
He spearheaded the legal effort, joined by more than 100 of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, in support of a dangerous and baseless lawsuit to overturn the results.
And after 3 weeks of infighting, Johnson faces the large task of uniting Republicans. There still seems to be quite a bit of bad blood inside the conference, despite this vote.
Well, this is politics. We don't pitch underhand.
Johnson kept such a low profile. One U.S. Senator told me he has to study up on who Mike Johnson is. Johnson is still navigating that very narrow majority in which any one faction of Republicans can block his priorities. And Anne-Marie, he's working under that same rule in which any one member can move to oust him.
Man, you would have thought that they would have, worked on, tried to alter that rule a little bit. Yeah, I heard there was one lawmaker that said that they had to Google him to learn more about him. Do you think that actually maybe benefited him? I mean, he succeeded where bigger names failed.
When you see a 4th-term congressman very few people know ascend to the speakership, you have to be certain that there's this confluence of rare events that all come together at once. And one of those events is Mike Johnson's ascendancy despite his anonymity. He is little known. He was little known, which may have helped him. He got the conservatives, the House Freedom Caucus members, to back him because he is an evangelical Christian with a conservative record. But he also secured the votes of those moderate Republicans in those competitive districts, potentially because he's an unknown quantity and hard for the constituents to oppose, because the constituents in those districts may have no idea who Mike Johnson is. Things came together in this weird way all at once for this congressman from Louisiana.
Here's the question, though, as you sort of point out his background. This is a guy that, questioned the outcome of the election. He's not going to have to just work with Republicans. He's going to have to work with Democrats, too. He's determining what pieces of legislation come to the House floor. Is he going to be able to work in a bipartisan manner?
We're about to find out. He is in charge of the entire administration of the U.S. House. There are a lot of non-political duties, overseeing the items that involve the blocking and tackling of Congress, the police, the sergeant at arms, the administration of the offices and spaces. There are some nonpartisan duties, but in terms of bipartisanship, We'll see what he has to offer, because he's going to have to work with Democrats. He's going to have to if he wants to keep the government open November 17th, because, yes, Democrats still control the Senate, and there's a Democrat in the White House. If he has no muscle memory or practice in working in a bipartisan fashion, he'll have to develop some quickly. And there's that aid package for Ukraine and Israel on the screen. $105 billion. There seems to be overwhelming support for Israeli aid. But Mike Johnson has a fractured Republican conference on the issue of Ukraine. They are divided over whether to continue spending American tax dollars on Ukraine. He has to navigate that and get everybody on the same page.
He's a big Donald Trump supporter. Could this also be seen as a victory for the former president?
The former president is declaring victory. But there really was a referendum this week, wasn't there, over 24 hours on the issue of the 2020 election. Tom Emmer, the Speaker nominee, got stopped short of the finish line because Trump criticized him. Emmer voted to certify President Biden's victory. Mike Johnson did not, voted to decertify it. And he didn't just make it to the finish line, he sped right past it.
So, is the thinking, so yes, we know that the president has asked for, billions of dollars to support Ukraine, to support Israel. But is the thinking that the possible government shutdown going to be maybe his biggest test that's going to come up, in a few weeks?
I think it's going to be the most immediate, large-scale test for Mike Johnson, and there's no way around the fact that he has to find a deal that satisfies Democrats. And what a tough way to start when you are succeeding somebody who was dethroned because Republicans didn't like the deal Kevin McCarthy cut with Democrats. Mike Johnson must do the same. But I'll tell you, Anne Marie, I talked to an awful lot of Republicans walking in and out of the Capitol for that vote yesterday. It seems clear they're going to give Mike Johnson a honeymoon period and a little bit more latitude at the start to cut that deal. They acknowledge there will have to be one of those continuing resolutions, one of those temporary deals to keep the government open. The same thing that enraged them when Kevin McCarthy did it. Seems like they're going to give some leash to Mike Johnson to do the same.
Very interesting, Scott. Scott MacFarlane, thank you.